Before we begin, take a breath. Let everything else fall away. Because love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it comes quietly, in memories, in second chances. In the way someone says your name like they never forgot it. You're listening to Love and Us. Stories that remind us that even when love fades, it always finds a way back home. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that stay with you long after the last word. The town of Willowmere woke slowly, the way old towns do. Not with alarm clocks or traffic, but with the scent of bread from the bakery and the soft ringing of the church bell that had lost its shine years ago. Lila Ward watched it all from her studio window, brush in one hand, coffee cooling in the other. She always said mornings smelled different near the water, and maybe that was why she never left. Every painting she made somehow ended with a horizon touched by rain. No matter the season, she painted the same window, that window. The one above the café across the street. The one she and Evan used to sit by when he was still hers. He'd left 5 years ago. No storm, no shouting. Just a train ticket and a half-finished cup of tea on her windowsill. Lila told herself she'd moved on, that she didn't wait for his messages anymore. But the truth hid in her canvases, every brushstroke a memory she hadn't learned to forget. A letter in the doorframe. It was a Wednesday when the rain returned, gentle at first, tapping the roof like hesitant knuckles. Lila reached for her mail without thinking, expecting bills and catalogues. But there it was, a cream envelope, smudged at the corner, her name written in familiar handwriting that made her heart stutter. Lila Ward, 47, Maple Lane. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, creased and rain-kissed. The words were few. If you still paint the window, meet me there Friday, 6 p.m. No signature, but she didn't need one. Her hands trembled the way they used to when Evan brushed the back of her neck and said her name like a promise. Memories like film grain that night. She didn't sleep. The town quieted into its lullaby, distant thunder, an occasional car, and Lila lay awake replaying the day he left. She remembered his restless eyes, always chasing something beyond the horizon. Newspapers don't wait, Lil, he'd said, voice heavy with guilt. It's just for a year, maybe 2. I need to do this. And she, always the one who understood, had smiled and nodded. Go chase it, she'd whispered. What she didn't say was please come back. He never did. The cafe and the clock. By Friday, the town streets shone slick with rain. The cafe window, their window, glowed warm against the grey outside. Lila stood across the street, watching her reflection merge with the glass. Inside, nothing had changed. The same worn chairs, the same crooked picture of the harbour, the same clock above the counter still stuck 3 minutes slow. She hesitated before stepping in. The bell chimed, a sound so small, yet her heart nearly broke at it. And then, he was there. Evan time had been kind and cruel to him. His hair, once dark and unruly, now held a streak of silver at the temple. His smile was hesitant, the way people smile when they're unsure if they're welcome. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." They both laughed, awkwardly, nervously, as if laughter could erase years. He gestured to the booth. "Still the same table." "Still the same clock," she replied. They Saturday. The air between them was thick with everything unsaid. Small talk, heavy silence. "How's the city?" she asked. "Loud. Fast. Exhausting," he said. "I missed quiet things." "And how's your painting?" She looked down, still trying to find the right colors. A pause stretched long enough for memory to settle between them. "Finally," he said, "I shouldn't have left the way I did." Lila traced the rim of her cup. "You shouldn't have promised to come back either." There it was, the truth. Not cruel, just honest. Flashback, the promise 5 years earlier. That same booth had been their last evening together. Rain hammered the window, and he'd held her hand as if memorizing it. "When I get published, you'll see my name on every page," he'd said. "And I'll tell everyone the girl behind it taught me how to listen." She had smiled, trying to be proud instead of terrified. When the train left, she'd run beside it until her breath gave out, waving with one hand, clutching her sketchbook with the other. He'd pressed his palm to the window. And that was how they broke. Back to now, the cafe's light flickered as thunder rolled. "Why now, Evan?" she whispered. He exhaled slowly. "Because my father passed. I came back for the funeral, and I realized I never came back for you." Her throat tightened. "It's been 5 years." "I know. People change. I'm hoping that's true, because I'm not sure I deserve the version of you I left." Outside, the rain intensified, streaking the window in silver. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The painting, he noticed her sketchbook on the table, a habit she never lost. "May I?" She nodded. He flipped through pages, sketches of rooftops, harbor lights, and that same window again and again, sometimes bright, sometimes grey, always waiting. "You kept painting it. I tried to stop. Why didn't you?" She looked at him then, eyes steady. "Because every time it rained, it felt like the town remembered you." Evan smiled, softly, painfully. "Or maybe the rain was trying to remind me where home is." A gentle goodbye, or something else. The cafe was closing. Chairs turned upside down, lights dimmed. He rose, slipping a card onto the table. "I'm here until Monday. If you want to talk again, or throw this in the river, either one's okay." Lila looked down at the card. A hotel name, a room number. She didn't look up until he was gone. Outside, the rain fell heavier, the kind that cleans streets and stirs memories. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching him disappear into the blur of headlights. And somewhere deep inside, a part of her she thought was long dead, started to breathe again. The next morning, Willowmere glowed with that uncertain kind of sunlight. The one that breaks through after heavy rain, soft and hesitant, like it's afraid to interrupt the quiet. Lila stood by her window again, mug in hand, watching the droplets slide down the glass. Evan's card lay on her desk, its edges curled slightly from where she'd held it too long the night before. She told herself she wouldn't go. That what they had was a chapter closed, signed, and shelved. But as the day wore on, every brushstroke she tried to make came out wrong. The paint refused to dry. Her heartbeat wouldn't steady. By evening, her resolve broke. The hotel was one of those modern replacements that felt foreign in their small town. Glass, chrome, and just enough false comfort to make you forget where you were. Room 207. She hesitated at the door, fingers hovering just above the wood. She almost turned back when it opened before she could knock. Evan stood there, holding 2 mugs of coffee like he'd been expecting her all along. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "Neither was I," she replied. He stepped aside, and she entered. A room with ghosts. It was simple. Bed unmade, a suitcase half open, the faint smell of rain from the balcony doors left ajar. On the desk sat a stack of old notebooks, the kind he used to carry everywhere. He handed her a cup. "Still take it black?" She nodded. "Still forget the sugar?" That made them both smile, the first real one in years. They sat across from each other, and for a moment, it felt almost normal. But time has a way of sitting between people, quiet but heavy, like an uninvited guest. Evan's story. He looked older now, not just in his face, but in the way he breathed before speaking. "When I left, I thought I was doing the right thing," he said. "I told myself ambition was everything. That success would make the distance easier. And did it?" He shook his head. "No, it just made the silence louder." He told her about the city, the endless nights, the noise that never stopped, the deadlines that ate away at his sleep. "I kept thinking I'd come back once things settled. But they never did. There's always another story to chase, another byline to prove you exist." "And when did you stop running?" she asked quietly. He stared at his coffee. "When my father got sick. He used to read every column I wrote. Said he could still hear your name between the lines." Evan smiled faintly. He wasn't wrong. "Lila's truth. I tried to forget you," she said. "I know." "No, you don't." She leaned back, her voice trembling. "I tried painting without you in my head. I went on dates. I smiled. I pretended the world hadn't stopped that morning you left. But no matter what I did, every person I met felt like a translation of something that used to be whole." He looked up, eyes soft. "And you kept painting the window?" She nodded. "Because it's where I last saw you. It felt like, maybe if I painted it enough times, I could finish what we left unfinished." A walk through memory, he set his mug down. Come with me. Where? Just trust me. They walked through the town, past the bookstore where he'd once surprised her with her favorite poetry collection, past the pier where they carved their initials into the railing. Time hadn't erased the places. It had only softened them. They stopped at the old bridge by the water, the one that always overflowed when the rain was too much. It's smaller than I remember, he said. You grew, she teased. He smiled. No, I just left for too long. Flashback. The bridge promise they had stood here once before, 5 years earlier, when he first told her about the job offer. It's just a year, he'd said, eyes bright with excitement. A year is a long time, she'd whispered. Then we'll write. Every week. Promise. And you'll come back. Always. She remembered the way he kissed her hand then, the rain catching in his hair, the way he'd laughed when thunder rolled. He'd said, if the rain remembers us, we'll find our way back. Back to now, you broke that promise, she said softly. I did, he admitted, but I kept every letter I wrote. He pulled a small bundle from his coat, envelopes tied with string, edges yellowed and worn. I never sent them. Too afraid you'd moved on, too ashamed that I hadn't. Her fingers brushed the letters, fragile, trembling. Why show me now? Because keeping them felt like holding my breath for 5 years, and I'm tired of not breathing. The confession he turned toward her then, really looked at her. I loved you then, he said, voice breaking. And I love you now. But I don't expect you to say it back. I just needed to stop pretending I didn't. Lila felt the weight of every word sink into her chest. There was a time she dreamt of hearing those words again, but not like this. Not when the years had changed them both. She took a step closer. You left me in the middle of our story, Evan. I know. And what if I can't pick up where we stopped? Then I'll start wherever you are. The simplicity of it undid her. The moment before the answer, the rain began again. Soft, rhythmic, echoing on the bridge's metal rails. Neither of them moved. The town felt distant. The world held its breath. Lila reached out, brushing the side of his sleeve, testing if this was real. It was. She whispered, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. He smiled gently. You don't have to know. Just feel it. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to. A quiet goodbye. All beginning, he walked her home that night. At her gate, they stopped, the air thick with the kind of silence that's too full to fill with words. Tomorrow, he said softly. She hesitated. Tomorrow. He watched her go inside. She turned once before closing the door, catching his reflection in the streetlight, older, sadder, but still the boy who once believed love could wait. Inside, she pressed her hand to her heart. Outside, the rain whispered against the cobblestones, not in mourning, but in memory. Because sometimes, love doesn't shout to be heard. Sometimes, it just waits, until the city between two hearts becomes small enough to cross again. When the rain-remembered morning came slow, the kind of soft dawn that filters through curtains like an apology. Lila sat by her window, coffee untouched, eyes tracing the thin silver mist that rose from the street. She had not slept. Every word Evan said replayed in her mind, not like noise, but like melody. I'll start wherever you are. Simple, honest, terrifying. She looked at her paintings, dozens of them stacked against the wall. Every one of them had the same theme, rain. And suddenly, she realized it wasn't the rain she'd been painting all this time. It was him. The knock at the door, a soft tap, broke her thoughts. She turned, hesitant, hopeful, afraid. When she opened the door, there was no one, just a small paper package sitting on the mat. Her breath caught as she recognized the handwriting, his. Inside the wrapping was a book, his first collection of published stories. The dedication page read, "For Lila, the girl who taught me that silence can be louder than any city." A folded note fell from between the pages. "If the rain remembers us, I'll be at the bridge tonight. No expectations, just truth." Her heart raced. The clock read 4 p.m. Outside, clouds gathered again, the world preparing to keep its promise. The bridge by dusk, Willowmere was awash in silver. The bridge stood empty, slick with rain. Lila clutched her umbrella, though she didn't bother to open it. He was already there, standing by the railing, soaked, smiling like someone seeing sunlight for the first time. "Hey," he said, breath misting in the cold. "Hey," she whispered back. Neither moved for a moment. It felt like every second of the last 5 years had been leading to this one. The truth finally spoken, he took a step closer, the rain streaking down his face. "I almost didn't write you that letter," he said. "I almost didn't come," she admitted. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "We've always been terrible with timing. Maybe that's what makes us us." He laughed, softly, the way he used to. Then his voice turned low. "I thought leaving you would make me stronger, but all it did was teach me what weakness really feels like." She looked at him, really looked. The boy who left was gone. The man who stood before her had scars she couldn't see, but she recognized the heart beneath them. "I hated you," she said, voice trembling. "And I missed you. Every day." "I know," he whispered. "And I missed you for every one of them." The confession that heals. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a folded sheet, worn at the edges. It was her sketch. The one she'd drawn the night before he left. 2 figures under the same umbrella, one hand holding the other. "I kept this," he said. "It reminded me that somewhere, there was a version of me that didn't walk away." Her eyes filled with tears, blurring the lights behind him into streaks of gold. "Then maybe we find that version again," she said softly. But slowly this time. No promises. Just time. Evan nodded. Slow is good. I've waited 5 years. I can wait through the rain. The embrace for a moment. Neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady rhythm of rain against the metal railing. Soft, certain, forgiving. Then, without planning, without ceremony, she stepped into his arms. It wasn't a movie kind of kiss or a dramatic reconciliation. It was quiet. Two people remembering how to breathe in the same rhythm again. He held her like someone holding a fragile truth. She rested her forehead against his chest and felt his heartbeat, unsteady, real, alive. The return home later that night, they walked back through the town together. The streetlights shimmered through puddles, and their reflections followed side by side, familiar yet new. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. When they reached her door, she turned to him. So, what happens now? He smiled. Now we learn who we are again, without running this time. She nodded. And if it rains again? He looked up, grinning. Then maybe it's just the world reminding us it remembers too. Epilogue. 1 year later, the town was brighter that spring. At the café window, their window, a new painting hung on display. It showed the bridge under a soft drizzle, two figures walking side by side, faces hidden, hands touching. In the bottom corner, Lila had signed her name, and just beneath it, in smaller handwriting, and sometimes, the rain remembers. Inside the cafe, Evan sat across from her, reading a proof of his new book. He looked up, smiling. You know, he said, you never did tell me how the story ends. She smiled back. It doesn't. It just keeps finding new ways to begin. They raised their cups in quiet toast. Outside, the sky darkened, and a soft drizzle began, gentle, familiar, endless. And somewhere in that sound, the rain remembered them once more.